with this all the time.
There are so many updates and tons of community work happening. It's hard to keep up. How do I follow it all?
Here is your answer. Listen to the Gutenberg Changelog. Oh, hello and welcome to our 21st episode for the Gutenberg Changelog. In today's episode, we will talk about Iceberg, a brand new Markdown editor for Gutenberg, about Gutenberg 8.2 release this week, WordPress 5.5 in the starting blocks, and the team's activities to get more community members involved in the early decisions around global styles, block-based themes, and full-set editing, and so much more. I'm Birgit Pauli-Hart, curator of the Gutenberg Times and owner of Polysystems, our web development and design agency in Naples, Florida. I'm here with my co-host, Mark Urain, designer at Automatic and contributing to WordPress as the design lead for phase 2 of Gutenberg. Welcome, everyone. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
Hey, Birgit. I'm doing really good. Looks like we have a release squad for WordPress 5.5 now, and that's been outlined. I like the group behind 5.5 and the all women squad aligning up for 5.6. These two groups are going to really make some good things happen, and I'm looking forward to seeing these next two releases come to fruition. Here in California, we're starting to open up again, little bit by little bit. The roads already, I see so many more cars on the roads. I took a drive today actually, and I was amazed at how quickly things get back to people traveling and moving around. I've been able to see some friendly faces today, and that just brought a smile to my face. How have you been doing though?
Well, it's good to see you. If it's just over Zoom, but it's nice. Yeah, we haven't seen each other for 2 weeks. But I'm also exhausted and exhilarated, and it's all kind of up and downs, but it's been a great week. I might have mentioned it before that I'm also contributing on the WordPress documentation team. Yes. I'm the team rep for the block editor end user documentation, not the developer documentation, that's a different team, but for the end user documentation. And in the last 2 weeks, we onboarded about 10 new contributors.
Wow. And
that's even ahead of next week's contributor day from WordCamp Europe. So I'm so thrilled, and they are brilliant people that joined us, and they're wonderful to work with, and we are building a fabulous documentation squad. And for now, we work through beta testing our processes so we can scale that operation from a one-person team to 10 and more. So that's kind of, I'm very excited about that, because I was a little bit afraid about that tsunami of work that's coming our way with 5.5 and 5.6 and whatever comes next, when we are still dealing with the documentation from 5.0.
Well, Birgit, like your energy is amazing. The fact that you've gathered up 10 new contributors to this team that are really putting in time and helping out the project, thank you for that, because that's amazing work right there.
Well, thank you. And if any of our listeners wants to contribute writing tutorials or documentation of blocks or other block editor features for the end users, we're looking for you. Just send me a private message on Slack or join us at the #docs meeting in the Docs channel on Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time or 1500 UTC.
Not to put us too much off topic, Birgit, but has the Docs team had any other coffee Zoom chats lately?
No, we're scheduling. There's a doodle going around, and I think they will announce it soon. But it was for the week of WordCamp Europe, so I don't know if we actually come to a conclusion there, because on Thursday is Contributor Day, so we're all online anyway and have a Zoom room somewhere. So it's going to be really interesting to see a Contributor Day actually virtual and not in person around a table with cookies and everything.
Right. So that brings us to listener questions, Birgit. But before we get into any listener questions, I wanted to read a new review we received on Stitcher. This one is by Peter Ingersoll. The title of the review was Excellent Information Filled WordPress Podcast. Many WordPress developers and editors did not like the Gutenberg block editor when it first came out. It's come a long way and is now a really great aspect of WordPress. For the definitive discussion on all things Gutenberg, subscribe to this podcast. They obviously work hard on this podcast and know their stuff. I learn a lot. I also really like how Birgit and Mark present and interact. Conversational, but on topic. Thank you. I really look forward to new episodes of Gutenberg Changelog. Well, thank you so much, Peter. That was those are some heartfelt words and uplifting for us. Wouldn't you say, Birgit?
Oh, very much. I think I grew about 10 inches. Yeah, and my head barely fits through the door. Thank you, Peter. It's a wonderful review. Now, dear listeners, if you want to help us promote this podcast too, you could write a review as well. And if you're listening on iTunes, we wrote a little tutorial for you how to add a review. It's on the gutenbergtimes.com/iTunes. gutenbergtimes.com/iTunes. And we will read it loud here as well. Now to our listener question, and it's for a suggestion by our friend Bud Krause from Joy of WP. Bud would like to have the icons back on the block toolbar more options menu. That's the 3-dot menu above the blocks. And he states, print impaired folks need those icons as they can't read the text only. Font is a hair smaller too. Really hard. Those icons are not just pretty pictures for some people. Mark, that was probably through the G2 update of the block UI when that changed. What can you tell Bud?
Yeah, I know the G2 updates for the kind of the redesign in Gutenberg there has been really focused on trying to lighten the UI around a lot of the elements. And I remember we did have those icons next to the options in the popover menus or the drop downs from the block toolbar. And so we did recently move those with this work. I think that's probably going to stay right now, but I really appreciate the comment and I get that concern of yours. We're probably going to test it out right now and kind of get more feedback on this. So your feedback is valuable, Bud, and definitely informs the decisions that we make. So we're going to hang on to that one and kind of see how this feels right now. But if it is a necessity and that we need to get those icons back, that's something we need to consider. I know the concern about icons though, because GitHub recently just kind of changed their icons somehow. Well, not somehow, but they did. And I noticed that when I go through and I'm clicking through things on GitHub, that whenever I come across the new icons, it always causes me to do a double take. I don't remember this being the right icon for what I clicked on before. And so any sort of visual change definitely has some trade-offs. And Bud makes a great point. So thank you for that. And I'm putting that on my Post-it on my desktop here to keep an eye out for, because that's a concern we should be aware of.
Yeah, thank you for sending this in, Bud.
And that brings us then, Birgit, to community contributions. Like you mentioned in the intro, Rich Tabor came out with Iceberg, which is a Markdown distraction-free editor built on top of Gutenberg. And for our listeners, you can go to useiceberg.com to check it out. I had an opportunity, as you did, Birgit, to test it out a little bit and provide some feedback during the process. It's a beautiful editor, quite honestly. And the way he really just makes it distraction free and the colors that he's using. What was your take on that?
Yeah, it's really fast and powerful and elegant. Yeah, I like the interface. It's very minimal, which is what you want.
And wrote a review.
Yeah, and you can read that on the Gutenberg Times. I also had a few ideas what could be added as features. So
look at you. You're already adding features to Iceberg. I thought Iceberg were trying to minimize the features. Oh.
But I had a few ideas in terms of if I use that for my writing and I'm writing for multiple sites, I don't want to kind of reconfigure Iceberg over and over again. So having a way to use the same settings from one site to the next would be a really good thing.
Good point.
And I know that Jeffrey Carradine and Rich Tabor, they're the team that built Iceberg, and they also brought you co-blocks on editors kits. So they're very early adopters of the block editor. So they have a lot of experience, and it really shows.
Yeah, in fact, I know that Iceberg made it into a WP Tavern article as well. It'll be linked in our show notes, but it's called New Iceberg Plugin Brings a Distraction-Free Writing Experience to WordPress. And I'm sure it got accolades on that article there, but I did have an opportunity to talk to Rich a little bit about it, because that little bit of distraction-free writing really influenced some thoughts that we on the Gutenberg team had about Spotlight mode. And Riyadh put together a PR just recently, kind of bringing the idea of this distraction-free writing mode into Gutenberg. And when we have the Spotlight mode, so he was kind of building on top of that on what are some other ways we can remove some of the Chrome around the editor. And so there's a PR for that right now, where we're talking about how we might get that sort of feeling in there for people who just want to focus on writing. Yeah. Really good work, Rich and team, or whoever's involved with that. Just phenomenal.
And to be honest, I'm really glad that both of them selected to make this a premium plugin, because a lot of people know Gutenberg is not yet finished and it's not stable and changes all over the interface. And having a product built on top of it is really hard work, and it needs a lot of agility. And so they both need to make their living somehow, and we value it much more when we pay for it. So
yeah, I totally agree with that. The work that they did is valuable.
Yeah, speaking about Gutenberg, so Gutenberg 8.2 was released on Wednesday, and then on Thursday we had 8.2.1 with some regressions that were fixed. There were new features in there, not a lot, but very nice. The cover block received a customization for content alignment, so you could now say, okay, I want the text that I just wrote either be on top or on the left side or on the bottom of the cover block or on the right. And you get a nice little interface there. I really like that very much. The team also added a support for block pattern categories. Mm-hmm. So when you have, I don't know, hundreds of block patterns in your inserter, that you actually can drill down on categories. If you look for a hero image or for a feature block or something like that, that you only see those, which is a nice feature to have, especially when you get from themes and plugins more block patterns into your block editor.
Right. There could be a lot of stuff in there. And so it's great to be able to categorize those and search through the patterns as well.
So there were also a few enhancements, and there was kind of an interesting question, what's the difference between features and enhancements? So features is new UI, and enhancement is kind of enhancing on an existing feature. So now the inserter when you open up the inserter, you see the most used blocks, and that is now limited to just 6 elements. Before, I think it was 12. So it kind of pushed all the other category below the fold, so to speak, and that has been changed. Then the buttons block, you can now allows now split and merge of buttons, I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. And then an enhancement is also for the local environment with better errors for the run commands, for better run commands errors. Yeah. What else? That's certainly something that theme developers will really like, when the specificity from the embed block styles are going to be refined. So there's a little bit more control over it.
There's a lot of conversation going on about that embed stuff right now. I don't know if you noticed on GitHub there. I was catching like 2 or 3 different issues about, how people paste in links to the editor, right? When we have an embed block, we kind of automatically convert it to the embed. But how does someone who wants just the link to show convert it back to the link or something? So there's been some issues and discussions around how we surface that to users so that they can really have more control on how they want that link to look.
Yeah, and speaking of embeds, that's pretty much the whole list of first issues for the documentation team, is writing the documentation for those. And what the part of it is that's the transforming. And I think it was in the last version already that the transform embed block into a paragraph block that kind of solves that link issue. What else? Oh, the group block has now matching front-end markup in the editor. Yay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the team added 2 new block patterns. One is a hero image with 2 columns, and the other one is a feature or services block pattern. And I'm looking forward to test those and on a few sites that we are releasing soon to use the core blocks for that.
Yeah, one of the discussions that rise up too is whether or not core should provide these block patterns, or if we should really just provide the UI and allow third parties to bring them in as far as themes or plugins. And that discussion's still kind of ongoing right now. We've got core patterns in there right now, but I'm not so sure if any, or maybe some, get into 5.5 or WordPress 5.5. We'll see.
Yeah, and I can see that that's an issue. So it wasn't because the core patterns also have the assets kind of come in with the plugin. And that's always an issue what to do when you want to change them out. And it's a load on the plugin as well. And I think, didn't we talk, I talked with somebody about it. I'm not sure if it was you, but the block pattern is actually meant for the plugin and theme developers, an API, and the block patterns from the core are actually just the testing and the examples that those developers are using to build their own patterns.
Yeah. Yeah, we kind of needed, like, we were building the UI for block patterns, but we needed some patterns in there to make sure we can actually test them out and that the functionality works well, and get others involved with feedback and testing. So that's why they're in there for the most part. But we know that we were trying to create common patterns that people would use on their sites to just get feedback there. So that brings us then to the new APIs section of the changelog. There are about 13 different PRs there, some regarding React hooks, some around the WordPress EMV, WordPress scripts. There was one about adding CSS support to start and build scripts. Another one about support and disabling dev tools, and another one about adding PHP unit support to the APIs there. So
that's great.
Yeah, 13. I mean, that's a lot of PR changes that are going in there right now. Because I remember in the past, most of the time there was just like 3 or 4 things going on.
Yeah.
Oh, and there was another one about supporting controlled inner blocks, which was an interesting one to look at. And then there were about 16 bug fixes with this new release. Several of them had to do with CSS fixes and a couple around buttons. Then there was some cover block resizing, border radius fixing, preventing contributors for accessing the media modal. I guess there was a bug around that. And finally, we've got about 6 performance PRs, of which I'm not going to dig into the 6, but I would like to point out that the loading time, the testing around the loading time, was improved by over a second. Awesome. So from 8.1 to 8.2, that's a pretty significant change there.
Yeah, and if you think that was enough, there were also 37 PRs on the experimental features that are, as you recall, the full site editing, the navigation block, and the block-based widgets, the global styles, and the block directory are the 5 experiments. Wow. That are in Gutenberg. And so for the full site editing, and I'm not gonna go through all of them.
Before you go into these, I just wanted to point out, like, with all these API changes and all these experimental full site editing changes, you could tell the team is really ramping up right now and getting ready to incorporate some big full site editing capabilities to Gutenberg. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting to see that there's so much movement on them. So for the full site editing, what stands out for me is the query block that has been added to it now, which allows you to drill down on the content that you want to see on a certain template or page in terms of custom type, post types, categories, taxonomies, all taxonomies for a post grid or something like that. That was still missing, was doing that with the post grid, the latest post grid, to actually also use it for the custom post types. So that is an experimental. Then have also experimental is, and fixed and refactored, is the post author block. That it's kind of interesting to see how the discussions go. And I think we need to all start experimenting with the full site editing so we can have an opinion about what we actually want in a post author block and what we don't want, so we can let voices be heard.
Yeah, totally.
There's also a focus mode and a top toolbar mode now for the full site editing. There has been a lot of changes also to the navigation block and screen, and that is definitely moving forward quite a bit. Now it has block movers on the block navigator, also an ellipsis menu for the block navigator, a location management for the menu. So if you want to have it top or bottom or social, and then also there's a navigation link block that uses now the rich text, split, merge, remove behavior that we know from there. And of course, yeah, we now need save and failure notices that are available. And now you can edit some new menu items in the block inspector. That's cool. The submenu nesting on saving with nested items, that's, yeah, still needs probably some work, test it out.
Yeah, that sub menu is, wow, that was a difficult one to kind of wrap our heads around. And even what's coming out in it right now is just kind of like a good MVP. It's pretty strong. Like, we've got an idea of how it should flow and work.
But I think that with usage, it gets better. In terms of what really works and what doesn't. So the block-based widget screen and customizer tab got a new interface package and use single block editor in the widget screen. So, and you can use it also in the mobile view. So the legacy widget is now added to the calendar transformation. So it can be transformed into a legacy widget and then go into a theme place for that widget. So that's really also tackling the backwards compatibility quite a bit. That's definitely going to be a topic around the widget screen and the customizer tab.
The widget screen is the widgets block screen. We have these block areas, right, which were like the widget areas in the widget screen. And that's coming together really well. It's almost dialed in nicely. There's just this legacy widget, right, is really kind of the difficult thing for us there, because who knows what third-party widgets people have on their sites. And in order to use this widget block screen, we have to somehow gracefully bring them over to it, those third-party widgets, and not destroy them in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, that gives a big of a riot there when that happens. Because I think the themes, how they are built now, that will stay around for at least a few years. Yeah, so the backwards compatibility is really important for that.
I don't think that widget screen will be, like the actual widget screen will be going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah, so there were also some additional changes to the global styles and the theme JSON. I'm pointing out here only the implement of managed CSS for the global styles. That's going to be really interesting for people to discover. And the last piece of the experimental section is there has been movement on the block directory. Through the grapevine, we heard that the meta team who's working on it has been doubled in size of teammates. So there will be some new, or not new, but some major progress made here, I would assume. Now you can activate deactivated blocks if it's already installed. It supports only arrays of assets that you inject, like pictures or graphics or CSS styling. Then it also removes the author rating when it doesn't exist. So in the opposite of direction, there will be author rating displayed in the block directory, and also updated the layout so it fits on a smaller inserter width.
Yeah, that layout's even undergoing a bit more revision as we kind of think things through a little more, but see where it lands.
Later on today, we will talk about the new ideas on how developer documentation should work for the blog directory. We are not through this section yet. So there's also a documentation section or updates on the documentation. That's developer documentation. And there are 9 PRs for that. I wanted to highlight that there's a document for performance testing commands now, and a documentation for the side effects in React and JavaScript, and how they're handled in WordPress. They updated the block editors docs to incorporate the block toolbar popover slot, meaning if you have on the toolbar a popover, you can kind of put something in there as a plugin developer. And they added a README to the media replace flow function module component. So that's it for the documentation part that I wanted to highlight. Did I overlook something?
No, I think that's right.
Okay.
You got all those. And then we had about this release, we saw 14 different code quality PR changes that went in. There was a couple around the image block. One in particular, removing the extra div wrapper in the editor. So that's always nice whenever you can pull some stuff out of there. And another one I'll talk about is using a light block DOM for the cover block to map front end markup. I think that's kind of relates to some of what you were talking about earlier about trying to get the markup, or trying to get the markup to match what's on the front end, also with the editor. Little by little, like, we're getting closer and to a real good seamless experience where one CSS file provided by the theme could really apply to both the front end and back end, ideally. The build tooling had about 11 changes with this release, a couple of which included refactor the changelog script as a release tool command. This really helps improve the release flow for everything, and getting this changelog all together and dialed into one place. The storybook was set to use a consistent port number now, instead of that port number changing at all. It's a consistent one. And we saw about 11 various other PRs that got into this release, a couple of which include the adding a simple block patterns end-to-end tests and a test utility. Another one, add an end-to-end test to verify cover, can be resized with drag and drop. So those were a couple among some other end-to-end tests and additional improvements. So all in all, this was quite a big release. It feels very packed with things as we get closer and closer to full site editing. And that closes the changelog for us.
And I just added up our numbers that we had here, and this were 138 PRs. No, line items. Some of them had 2 or 3 PRs. Yeah, congratulations to the team. That's some great work and hard work to put this all together.
Really good.
Yeah, and so the next section is what's in active development or discussed, and I mentioned it before. Ann McCarthy posted a discussion issue on GitHub with the title Next Steps for Blog Creation Documentation. And she has ideas on how to improve the developer documentation for Gutenberg. It's already a good to-do list, but in the article, after some background, she also distinguishes between the official documentation and then tutorials. And she is really asking for input in terms of having have the first magical steps to bring a newbie from start to finish and find out where the gaps are. And if you, dear listeners, are a PHP developer and haven't gotten into Gutenberg yet, it might be worth following this part of the discussion. It's directed at you and finding out or letting know what you need to get into custom block development. So what are your hurdles? What are your confusions? It would really help. So we put the link, of course, in the show note. And it's a GitHub issue, so it collects all the comments right there on the issue or on that article. And also published another article on, this time on the Core Make blog, ways to keep up with full site editing. That was identified by a few people, amongst them Justin Tadlock from the WP Tavern, that there's a lot of things kind of up in the air. and it's hard to keep track of it. And in that article, she helps you kind of divides it up in what's yearly published, what's quarterly published, what's monthly published, and then bi-weekly and weekly with not only the posts that are regularly published, but also with the meetings and chats and the summaries from those. Yeah, it gives you everything that you could use and kind of for you to decide how often do you want to keep up with things.
It's really a comprehensive list. Yeah, really well done and put together.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so Birgit, let's talk a little bit about WordPress 5.5 here. We know it's on the horizon. The release squad is identified. And beta 1 is scheduled for July 7th, 2020. So I just recently posted on the Make Core blog about the editor features that we're hoping to include in 5.5. And I talked about things that we know will ship. We'll include the new UI design that's going to be happening. There's a PR for block movers. We need to refine that still. We have the block inserter panel. If you remember, it was just a popover up in the upper left-hand corner, but now it's an actual panel that kind of slides out, allowing more room and a cleaner view. Then this new UI design also includes a lot of the surrounding elements of the editor, like the sidebar and the top toolbar. We know that block patterns UI is going to get into 5.5, and that includes, like we mentioned, the pattern search and the pattern categories. But there are still several issues that we need your help, listeners, to come in and give us your feedback, to test things out in these issues, because we really would like to see them get into 5.5, but we need the help to make that happen. And these include the navigation block as one of them. We're incorporating the navigator into that to kind of help navigate through the navigation block, because we know that the menu items can become really intense as far as how many menu items people could include there. The various interactions for that little navigator. There's the sub-menus that we talked about. We have the navigation menu screen, which we mentioned that we'd like to get in for 5.5, the widget block screen. There's the core block patterns, which is still up in the air, and the block directory, as we mentioned, and then even the block design tools, which are kind of like the global style tools, but on a block by block basis. So all those things we'd like to see happen before 5.5. Now, whether they get in or not is still up in the air. It really depends on how much we get together as a community and put effort into making those things happen.
Yeah, and there is not a whole lot of time, right? So today is, it's June next week. And the first beta is when the decision needs to be made, which version of Gutenberg actually gets into the core. And there are only two releases left, right?
Yeah.
So it's either 8.4 or 8.5, depending if they do another week release the next week. Kind of cut down the release cycle in half. But that's really interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of things to be done. Don't put so much in there because your documentation team doesn't come in. Yeah, tells you where my focus is. And from there also, I want to surface.
I want to keep those 10 new contributors you have busy, Birgit.
I'm looking actually for 20, 25.
Okay.
Because we need to kind of have reviewers and those who can publish. And there is a whole idea behind things. But out of that, getting really into it, what's a good process? I noticed that when you draft and collaborate on Google Docs on a content and put all the images in there and then copy paste it over into your block editor, it's so nice. It all comes over. The text is formatted nicely and you see the pictures, and it's really great. And if you're the owner of both the website and the document, it should all be fine. But the big problem is that the pictures are still referenced to the Google Doc. And for an official documentation, we definitely can't have that, because it would require that the contributor keeps that document around. And so I found an issue that is the issue 2515, and I'm lobbying for a week now to get it higher on the priority. but it's almost 3 years, but I know that there was a external images into the media library. That would be automatically. That would be really great. I know there were some REST API issues on the media library for a year or so that weren't fixed before this can happen. So I know why the delay is, but I'm trying to get it a little bit higher in there. So
good, keep pushing it. That's what makes things happen, Birgit, is when that issue has someone to champion it and drive it forward, those things get done.
Well, and if you shut me up, right?
You know what? I've run into that very same issue multiple times. Okay. So it's a desire of mine to get in there. I'd love to have, when you copy over content from another editor into the block editor, I would love that content is, if it's images and media, like it gets added to the media library.
Yeah, definitely. For those who want to be in the forefront of theme development and what's coming up, Andre started documenting how themes can hook into the various subsystems on the block editor. And this document needs to be reviewed on a wider theme community. So, and probably discussed to kind of see what's working, what's not working. And he suggests an experimental theme.json, which is all the parameters and settings, as a method for the theme to define the global styles. We put the link in the show notes. It's on the developer documentation already there, marked experimental. So if you're a theme developer and you want to kind of get going on this and see how that's going to shape up, you can actually contribute to the decision here.
And we also have the Gutenberg and theme news. So if anybody's been paying attention to those posts coming out, let's see, this and more have been brought to you by the new weekly Gutenberg and theme news from the WordPress theme team. And Kel collected a set of GitHub issues that need your voice and feedback. 12 general issues. Examples include discussing themes, setting font style rules for the heading block, a conceptual discussion about removing all default margins and blocks in the editor. And I actually just saw this come up recently elsewhere as well. Removing these default margin and paddings is a big desire for people. There's a discussion around standardizing class names for blocks and backgrounds.
Big desire.
There you go. There were 7 issues concerning block-based themes. For instance, a discussion on figuring out a way to handle inline dynamic content in theme templates, or the issue for creating a new post title block. And the last section is global styles. There were about 5 issues there. Recap the next steps for global styles, allowing themes to override global defaults, and block settings using global styles. So there's a lot of discussion going on and a lot of things that need decision. So maybe you can add your voice and make your opinion heard. So please chime in on those posts, comment on them. When you see the PRs or issues that are linked, click on those and leave some feedback for the designers and the developers, the contributors who are a part of this. And recently there was also, we're talking about themes, and themes use the customizer quite a bit. David Herrera facilitated a special discussion on Slack in the customizer channel, core customizer, about the customizer and full site editing between the customizer team and the developers and designers on the Gutenberg team. And this wasn't just not that long ago. And there was a great discussion going back and forth on the future and how to integrate things together. So if you're in the Slack channels, check that out.
But I really commend the theme team, how they pivot to kind of really surface some of the issues that people need to talk about and want to talk about, and put it all in one post. So you only have to go to the theme, make.wordpress.org/theme. And they started that about 2 weeks ago, that they have weekly news about things. So tune in into their news there. And Kel did a great job putting that together. There's also Jeff Young, who participates on that, and there are others on the theme review team, or theme team. Yeah, because it's not only a review anymore. Yeah, it's really putting it all together. So Now we come to the end of our show. I want to remind everyone on that Gutenberg Phase 2 Friday Design Update number 54 was published last week by Mark Urain, and you have a lot to read now, so we don't want to add any more.
Yeah.
So as always, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think we covered so much in this episode.
Yeah, it was a lot, but it's great what everything, the creativity and the buzz around things is really cool. As always, the show notes will be published on the gutenbergtimes.com/podcast, and this is episode 21. And if you have questions or suggestions or news you want us to include, send them to changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. That's changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. Thanks for listening, and thanks sending in your questions, and we're so happy to read reviews. Thank you so much, and goodbye until the next time.
Thank you, everybody. Birgit, it was a pleasure.
Bye, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.